The first thing Caleb Hayes noticed that morning wasn't the sunrise bleeding through his cabin windows or the smell of yesterday's coffee still sitting in the pot. It was the girl standing in his kitchen, barefoot and trembling, wearing nothing but his old flannel shirt. She looked like a ghost, pale skin, hollow eyes, arms wrapped tight around herself like she might fall apart if she let go. He didn't know her name yet, didn't know where she'd come from or what had happened to her. All he knew was that 12 hours ago he'd found her collapsed on the pier, soaking wet and half-conscious, and made a choice that would crack his world wide open. If you want to see how far a single decision can change everything, stick around until the end of this story. And hey, drop a comment with your city. I want to see how far this one travels. Hit that like button and let's get into it. Caleb Hayes had learned a long time ago that mornings didn't wait for you to be ready. They came whether you'd slept or not, whether you had your life together or were barely holding the pieces. This particular morning came hard and fast, dragging him out of a restless half-sleep on the couch where he'd spent most of the night keeping watch. The sun wasn't even fully up yet, just starting to paint the edges of the sky that pale gray blue that made everything look unfinished. Caleb sat up, his back protesting immediately. The couch in his cabin wasn't meant for sleeping. It was one of those old things he'd picked up from a yard sale 3 years back, all worn cushions and springs that poked through if you sat in the wrong spot. But it had a clear view of the hallway, and that's what mattered. He rubbed his face, feeling the scratch of 2 days' worth of stubble, and listened. The cabin was quiet except for the usual sounds. The old wood settling, the wind pushing against the windows, the distant hum of the refrigerator that needed replacing but probably never would. Then he heard it. Footsteps. Light, hesitant, like someone trying not to be heard. Caleb stood slowly, his joints cracking in the silence. He was 32 but felt older most days, like life had pressed extra years into his bones. He moved toward the kitchen, each step careful, and stopped in the doorway. She was standing by the window, silhouetted against the early light. Her back was to him, one hand pressed against the glass like she was testing whether it was real. She'd put on his shirt sometime during the night, the blue flannel he'd left folded on the chair in the guest room. It hung past her knees, sleeves rolled up 3 times and still too long. Her hair was a mess of dark tangles down her back, still damp in places. "You're awake," Caleb said, keeping his voice low and even. She spun around so fast she nearly lost her balance, one hand flying to her chest. Her eyes were wide, that same look of trapped panic he'd seen on the pier. Up close, in better light, he could see the exhaustion carved into her face, the bruise on her cheekbone, the way her bottom lip was split on one side. "I'm sorry," she said immediately, the words tumbling out. "I didn't mean to. I should have stayed in the room. It's fine." Caleb held up both hands, showing empty palms. "You're not a prisoner here. You can go wherever you want." She looked at him like she didn't quite believe that, but she didn't run. That was something. She just stood there, shoulders hunched, arms crossed over her chest even though the shirt covered everything, protecting herself from threats that weren't in the room, but might as well have been. Caleb moved slowly to the counter, keeping distance between them. "Coffee?" "I don't want to be any trouble." "Wasn't asking if you wanted to be trouble. I was asking if you want coffee." He pulled down 2 mugs without waiting for an answer. The coffee maker was already half full from yesterday, cold but still drinkable if you weren't picky. He wasn't. "Sit if you want, or don't. Whatever makes you comfortable." For a long moment, she didn't move. Then, like she was testing the water with her toe, she took one small step toward the table. Then another. She pulled out a chair, the one with the wobbly leg that Caleb kept meaning to fix, and sat down carefully, like the whole thing might collapse under her. Caleb poured 2 mugs of cold coffee and stuck them in the microwave one at a time. The machine hummed and spun, filling the silence with something other than tension. When both mugs were warm enough, he set one in front of her and took the chair across the table, not next to her, giving her space. "Thank you," she said quietly, wrapping both hands around the mug but not drinking. "You sleep at all?" She shook her head. "Not really." "Yeah, me neither." That got the smallest twitch of her mouth, not quite a smile, but something adjacent to one. She finally lifted the mug and took a sip, wincing slightly like even that small act hurt. Caleb drank his own coffee and watched her without making it obvious. She was young, mid-20s maybe, but there was something ancient in her eyes, like she'd lived through things that aged you from the inside out. He knew that look. He'd seen it in the mirror often enough. "I'm Caleb," he said after a while, "in case you don't remember from last night." "I remember." Her voice was soft, barely above a whisper. "You told me 3 times." "Yeah, well, you were pretty out of it. Wanted to make sure it stuck." He paused. "You got a name, or should I just keep calling you the girl I found on the pier?" She looked down into her coffee like the answer might be floating in there. "Iris." "Iris." He let it settle. "Okay, that's a start." I can't really." She stopped, took a breath. "I can't go back." "Didn't ask you to." Her eyes snapped up to his, searching for the catch. There was always a catch. Nothing was free. Nobody helped without wanting something. Caleb could see all of that running through her head, plain as day. "Look," he said, setting his mug down. "I don't know what you're running from, and I'm not going to push you to tell me, but you showed up half drowned on a pier in the middle of the night, beaten up and scared out of your mind. I wasn't going to just leave you there. Most people would have. Then most people are idiots." That got another almost smile, a little stronger this time. She took another sip of coffee and some of the tension started to leak out of her shoulders. Not much, but enough. "I have a kid," Caleb said, because that seemed important to say out loud. "Emma. She's 6. She's with her grandma right now, but she'll be back tomorrow." Iris stiffened immediately. "I should go." "That wasn't me telling you to leave. That was me being honest about the situation." He leaned back in his chair. "Emma's a good kid. Curious as hell, talks a mile a minute, but she's got a good heart. I just wanted you to know before you met her." I shouldn't be around a child. Not like this." "Like what?" "Like..." She gestured vaguely at herself, at the shirt that wasn't hers, at the mess of her life that she was wearing like a second skin. "This." Caleb shook his head. "You're not dangerous. You're just hurt." "You don't know that." "Yeah, I do." The certainty in his voice seemed to catch her off guard. She stared at him for a long moment, and Caleb held her gaze, letting her see that he meant it. He'd been around enough broken people. Hell, he'd been enough of a broken person to know the difference between someone who was dangerous and someone who'd been hurt by dangerous people. Iris looked away first, blinking hard. "I don't understand why you're helping me." "Because somebody needed to." It was the simplest answer and the truest one. Caleb had spent the last 3 years learning how to ask for help, how to accept it when it was offered, how to recognize that needing people wasn't the same as being weak. It had taken him a long time to get there. Maybe he could save Iris some of that time. "You got anywhere to go?" he asked. She shook her head. "Anyone I should call? Family? Friends?" Another shake. "Okay." Caleb finished his coffee and stood. "Then here's what we're going to do. You're going to stay here as long as you need to. Guest room's yours. I'll stay out of your way. You stay out of mine, and we'll figure out the rest as we go." "I can't." "Yeah, you can. And you will, because the alternative is you going back out there with nowhere to go and nothing but my shirt on your back." He walked to the sink and rinsed his mug. "Breakfast is in 20 minutes. You can eat or not, that's your call. But I'm making it either way." He left her sitting there at the table, still gripping her coffee mug like it was the only solid thing in the world. He could feel her watching him as he moved around the kitchen, pulling out eggs and bread and the half-empty carton of milk that was probably a day past good but would work fine for scrambling. Cooking gave him something to do with his hands, something to focus on besides the quiet woman at his table and the fact that his life had just gotten exponentially more complicated. He cracked eggs into a bowl, whisked them with a fork that had seen better days, and tried not to think too hard about what he'd gotten himself into. The thing was, Caleb had built a routine. After the divorce, after the custody battle, after all the chaos of his old life had finally settled into something manageable, he'd built himself a routine. Work at the marina, pick up Emma from school, dinner at 6, bedtime at 8, repeat. It wasn't exciting, but it was stable. And stable was all he'd wanted for the last 3 years. Now there was a stranger in his house wearing his shirt, and stable was probably off the table for a while. "Can I help?" Iris had stood from the table, still keeping her distance but watching him work. She looked so small in that oversized shirt, like a kid playing dress-up in her father's clothes. "You know how to make toast without burning it?" I think I can manage that. Then yeah, you can help. What? She moved to the counter beside him, not too close, and he handed her the loaf of bread and pointed to the toaster. They worked in silence for a few minutes, the kind of quiet that wasn't quite comfortable but wasn't entirely awkward either. Just two people doing a simple thing together. The eggs were nearly done when Iris spoke again. Why the pier? Caleb glanced at her. What? Last night. You said you were at the pier. It was late. Why were you there? He stirred the eggs, watching them scramble in the pan. Couldn't sleep. Happens sometimes. I go down to the water, clear my head. Lucky for me. Lucky for both of us, maybe. The toast popped. Iris jumped slightly at the sound, then laughed, a small, broken sound that hurt to hear. Sorry, I'm a little jumpy. Yeah, I noticed. She pulled the toast out carefully, set the slices on plates. I used to love the water. Before. Before what? She didn't answer, just shook her head and focused on buttering the toast with hands that trembled slightly. Caleb didn't push. He divided the eggs between two plates, added the toast, and they sat back down at the table. They ate in silence. Iris picked at her food at first, taking small bites like she wasn't sure her stomach would accept it. Caleb ate steadily, giving her the space to decide whether she could trust this moment or not. By the time they were halfway through, she was eating more normally, the food seeming to wake something up inside her. This is good, she said quietly. It's eggs. Still good, Caleb shrugged. Cooking for a 6-year-old teaches you how to make things simple. Emma's not big on complicated. What's she like, your daughter? He smiled without meaning to, the way he always did when he thought about Emma. She's a force of nature. Smart as hell, stubborn as her mother, curious about everything. Drives me crazy half the time, but she's the best thing that ever happened to me. You must miss her when she's gone. Every time. He pushed eggs around on his plate. Her mom and I split when Emma was 3. We do shared custody now, week on, week off. It's not perfect, but it works. That must be hard. It is what it is. He looked up at Iris. You got any kids? The question landed wrong. He saw it immediately in the way her whole body tensed, the way her fork clattered against her plate. No, God, no. Hey, I'm sorry, didn't mean to... It's fine. But her voice had gone flat, distant. I just... No kids. Caleb filed that reaction away and changed the subject. So what's your plan? For today, I mean. Iris looked at him like he'd asked her to explain quantum physics. I don't know. Okay, let's start smaller. You need clothes, shower, probably some bandages for those cuts. He gestured vaguely at her face, her arms. I've got a first aid kit. Not much, but enough to clean you up a bit. I don't want to be a burden. You keep saying that. Hasn't made it true yet. She almost smiled again. Almost. After breakfast, Caleb showed her where everything was. The bathroom with its ancient shower that took 3 minutes to get warm. The closet where he kept spare towels and the first aid kit he'd restocked after Emma's last bike accident. The guest room where she'd spent the night, small and plain, but clean. There's not much for clothes, he said, opening the dresser drawer that held Emma's outgrown things and a few random items he'd never gotten around to donating. But there might be something in here that fits well enough until we figure something else out. Iris looked through the drawer carefully, like each piece of clothing was fragile. She pulled out an old sweatshirt and a pair of leggings. These will work. Bathroom's yours as long as you need it. I'll be outside if you need anything. He left her there and went out to the porch, giving her privacy. The morning had settled into itself now, full light washing over the trees that surrounded his cabin. It wasn't much of a place. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, kitchen that opened into the living room. All of it built decades ago by someone who valued function over form, but it was his. Quiet. Isolated enough that his nearest neighbor was a 1/4 mile down the road. He'd chosen it specifically for that isolation after the divorce. He'd needed space to figure out who he was when he wasn't half of a failing marriage, when he wasn't the guy who'd screwed everything up. The cabin had given him that space. It had given him room to rebuild. Now it was giving Iris room too. He didn't know her story, didn't know what she was running from or how long she'd need to hide. But sitting there on his porch, listening to the water run through old pipes as she showered, Caleb made a decision. Whatever she needed, however long it took, he'd help her find her footing. It was just the right thing to do. 20 minutes later, the water shut off. 10 minutes after that, Iris emerged onto the porch, wearing the sweatshirt and leggings, her hair wet and combed back from her face. The clothes hung on her. She was thinner than he'd realized, but they were clean and whole, and that was something. "Better?" Caleb asked. "Yeah." She sat down on the porch steps, keeping a few feet between them. "Thank you." "Stop thanking me. It's weird." That got a real smile this time, small but genuine. They sat there for a while, watching the morning, and Caleb realized this was the first time she'd seemed even remotely at ease since he'd found her. "I should tell you," Iris said eventually, her voice quiet but steady. "I'm not staying long. Just until I figure out my next move." "Okay." "I mean it. A few days, maybe a week. Then I'll be gone." "Whatever you need." She looked at him sideways. "You're not going to try to convince me to stay longer?" "Nope." "Why not?" "Because it's your choice, not mine." Iris turned back to the trees, but he could see something shift in her expression. Like that was the right answer. Like maybe, for the first time in a long time, someone had given her a choice and actually meant it. They spent the rest of the morning in careful orbit around each other. Caleb had work. He was supposed to be at the marina by noon to help dock a shipment, but he called in, said he had a personal emergency. His boss grumbled but didn't push. One of the advantages of being reliable for 3 straight years was that you earned a little slack when you needed it. Iris mostly stayed in the guest room. Caleb could hear her moving around in there. Quiet sounds like she was trying to make herself as small as possible. Around 1, he made sandwiches and left one outside her door with a glass of water. When he came back an hour later, the plate was empty. Small victories. By evening, she'd ventured back out to the living room. Caleb was on the couch, half watching some documentary about deep-sea creatures that Emma had made him record. Iris hesitated in the doorway, then moved to the chair on the opposite side of the room. "Can I watch?" "Sure." They watched in silence. On screen, some bioluminescent jellyfish drifted through darkness, glowing like ghosts. Caleb had seen this episode 3 times already. Emma was obsessed with anything ocean-related, but he didn't mind. It was peaceful, uncomplicated. "Do you believe in second chances?" Iris asked suddenly. Caleb looked over at her. She was curled up in the chair, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the TV, but clearly seeing something else. "Yeah," he said. "I do." "Why?" "Because I got one. Would be pretty hypocritical not to believe in them after that." "What happened?" He considered not answering. He'd gotten good at deflecting these questions, at keeping his past tucked away where it couldn't hurt anymore. But Iris had asked, and there was something raw in the way she was looking at him, like his answer mattered. "I was married," he said slowly. "Sarah. We met young, got married younger. Had Emma too fast before we really knew what we were doing, and He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I wasn't a good husband. I was working all the time, drinking too much, not present even when I was home. I told myself I was providing, doing what I needed to do, but really I was just running from the fact that I had no idea how to be what they needed." Iris didn't say anything, but she was listening, really listening. "Sarah tried for years to get me to wake up, to see what I was doing to us. But I didn't want to see it. And then one day she was done trying, filed for divorce, fought for custody, and I almost lost Emma completely." He rubbed his face. "That was my rock bottom. The moment when I had to look at myself and decide if I was going to keep being the guy who ran or if I was going to fight for something better." "What did you do?" "Got sober, got therapy, got my shit together, basically. Took 2 years before Sarah trusted me enough to agree to shared custody. Took 3 before I trusted myself." He looked at Iris. "So yeah, I believe in second chances, because I'm living one." She was quiet for a long time, then, "Do you think everyone deserves one?" "I think everyone deserves the chance at one. Whether they take it or not, that's on them." "What if you've done things you can't take back?" "We've all done things we can't take back. Question isn't whether you can erase them. It's whether you can learn from them and do better." Iris pulled her knees closer to her chest. "I don't know if I can do better. I don't even know if I know how anymore." "Then you learn." That's what second chances are for. The documentary ended. Credits rolled over footage of the ocean floor. Caleb stood and stretched, his back cracking again. I'm going to heat up some leftovers for dinner. You want some? Okay. It was a small word, but it felt like progress. They ate together at the table again. Leftover spaghetti that Emma had helped him make 3 days ago, more bread from breakfast, water in glasses that didn't match. It was simple, quiet, almost normal. After dinner, Iris helped him clean up without being asked. She washed, he dried, and they moved around the small kitchen in a rhythm that wasn't quite comfortable but wasn't fighting either. I think I'm going to go to bed, Iris said when they were done. Okay, you need anything? No, I just... She hesitated at the doorway to the hall. Thank you. For today. For all of it. You're welcome. She disappeared down the hall, and a minute later Caleb heard the guest room door close softly. He stood in the kitchen, dish towel still in his hands, and wondered what the hell he was doing. He'd meant what he said about second chances. He believed in them. But he also knew that getting involved with someone else's crisis was risky, especially when you were still holding your own life together with duct tape and hope. Emma would be back tomorrow. He'd have to explain Iris, have to make sure Emma understood that this was temporary, that Iris was just someone who needed help. But even as he thought it, Caleb knew it wasn't going to be that simple. Nothing ever was. He settled onto the couch again, grabbed an old blanket from the basket in the corner, and tried to sleep. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. Inside, the cabin was quiet except for the settling sounds and the faint hum of the refrigerator. Somewhere down the hall, Iris was probably lying awake too, staring at an unfamiliar ceiling and wondering if she'd made a mistake trusting a stranger. Caleb hoped she hadn't. He hoped he wouldn't let her down. But hope was a tricky thing. It could keep you going or break you clean in half. He'd learned that the hard way. He closed his eyes and tried not to think about tomorrow, about Emma's questions, about the bruises on Iris's face that told a story he didn't want to know, but probably needed to. He tried not to think about the way she'd looked at him when he said everyone deserved a chance at a second life. Like maybe she was starting to believe it. Like maybe he'd just promised something he couldn't deliver. The wind kept blowing, the cabin kept settling, and Caleb kept not sleeping, watching the darkness and wondering how one impulsive decision at a pier was going to change everything. Because it would. He could feel it already. Some moments were like that. They looked small when you were in them, but you could sense the weight of what they'd become. Finding Iris on that pier, bringing her home, offering her shelter, these weren't small things. They were the kind of choices that split your life into before and after. Caleb had already lived through enough befores and afters to recognize one when it was happening. He just had to hope this one would turn out better than the last. Morning came too early, dragging Caleb out of another shallow sleep. His neck was stiff from the couch, and somewhere in the night he'd kicked the blanket onto the floor. He sat up slowly, working out the kinks in his shoulders, and checked his phone. 7:30. Sarah would be dropping Emma off at 9. He needed to talk to Iris before then. The guest room door was still closed when he walked down the hall. He knocked softly, 2 quick taps. Yeah? Her voice was muffled, cautious. Can we talk? Before my daughter gets here? A pause. Give me a minute. Caleb went to the kitchen and started coffee, fresh this time, not yesterday's reheated garbage. He was measuring grounds when Iris appeared in the doorway, wearing the same sweatshirt and leggings from yesterday. Her hair was pulled back in a messy knot, and the bruise on her cheek had deepened to a dark purple. Coffee's almost ready, he said. Okay. She stayed in the doorway, arms crossed, still keeping that distance. Look, I need to be straight with you about something. Caleb leaned against the counter. Emma's coming back this morning, and she's going to have questions. Lots of them. That kid could interrogate a stone and get it to crack. Iris's face went carefully blank. I should leave before she gets here. That's one option, or you could stay, and we tell her you're a friend who needed a place to crash for a few days. I'm not your friend. I'm a stranger you found half dead on a pier. Yeah, but Emma doesn't need to know that part. The coffee maker beeped. Caleb poured 2 mugs and held one out. Look, I'm not trying to force you into anything. If you want to go, you can go. But if you're not ready yet, if you don't have anywhere to be, then stay. We'll figure it out. Iris took the mug but didn't drink. Why are you doing this? We covered this yesterday. No, I mean, really. What's in it for you? Caleb had been expecting that question. He'd asked himself the same thing about 100 times since last night. Nothing's in it for me. Sometimes people just need help, and if you can give it, you should. That's all there is to it. Nobody's that simple. Then maybe I'm an idiot. Either way, the offer stands. She studied him for a long moment, like she was trying to find the lie hidden in his words. When she didn't find one, something in her posture softened slightly. What do I tell her? Your daughter. The truth, mostly. You needed a place to stay. I had a spare room. She doesn't need the details. And when she asks why I needed a place to stay, then you tell her you're between things right now. Emma understands that. Her mom and I have been between things for 3 years. Iris almost smiled at that. Almost. What if she doesn't like me? She'll like you. Emma likes everyone until they give her a reason not to. He paused. Fair warning, though. She's going to ask you about a million questions. What's your favorite color? Do you like dinosaurs? Have you ever seen a whale? That kind of thing. She's 6. Everything is fascinating. I don't know if I'm good with kids. You don't have to be good with them. You just have to be honest with them. Kids can smell bullshit a mile away. That got a real smile. Small, but there. Iris took a sip of her coffee and winced. This is terrible. Yeah, I know. I'm not great at coffee. Clearly. They were still standing there, trading barbs over bad coffee, when headlights swept across the front windows. Caleb checked his phone. 8:45. Sarah was early. That's them, he said. Iris set down her mug immediately. I should stay here, it's fine. But she'd already disappeared down the hall, door clicking shut behind her. Caleb sighed and went to the front door, stepping out onto the porch just as Sarah's car pulled to a stop. Emma exploded out of the passenger side before Sarah had even put it in park, all wild brown hair and gap-toothed grin. She hit the porch steps at a dead run and launched herself at Caleb. Dad! He caught her easily, lifting her up even though she was getting too big for it. Hey kiddo, miss me? So much. Grandma took me to the aquarium and we saw the sea turtles. And there was this one turtle that was missing part of his flipper, but he could still swim super fast, and the guide said his name was Captain, and I got you a magnet from the gift shop, but I left it in Grandma's car, so I'll give it to you next time, okay? All of that came out in about 3 breaths. Caleb set her down and ruffled her hair. Sounds like you had a good time. The best. Emma grabbed his hand and started pulling him toward Sarah's car. Come see what else Grandma got me. Sarah was getting Emma's backpack out of the trunk. She looked tired, more tired than usual, and Caleb felt the familiar twist of guilt that came with knowing he'd been part of why her life was harder than it needed to be. Hey, he said. Hey yourself. Sarah handed him the backpack. She's been talking nonstop since yesterday. Fair warning. When does she not talk nonstop? Fair point. Sarah glanced at the cabin, then back at him. Everything okay? You sounded weird on the phone yesterday. Yeah, fine, just had some stuff come up. What kind of stuff? Before he could answer, Emma had circled back and was tugging on his arm again. Dad, you're not listening. I'm trying to tell you about the octopus. I'm listening, Em. Octopus, go ahead. Emma launched into another breathless story, and Sarah gave him a look that said they'd be talking about this later. Caleb just nodded. He'd deal with Sarah's questions when they came. Right now, he had to manage Emma's energy and somehow explain why there was a strange woman hiding in his guest room. Sarah left after making Emma promise to call her before bed. The moment her car disappeared down the road, Emma turned to Caleb with that look she got when she was about to ask something she thought was very important. Dad, can we make pancakes? Sure, kiddo. Go wash your hands first. Emma took off running. Caleb went back inside and Iris was standing in the kitchen again, looking like she'd been caught somewhere she wasn't supposed to be. She seems nice, Iris said quietly. Sarah? Yeah, she's good people. We just weren't good together. I meant your daughter. Oh, right. Yeah, Emma's the best. He pulled out the pancake mix. You can still hide if you want. No pressure. Iris shook her head. No, I should meet her, if I'm going to be here. You sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Emma came thundering back into the kitchen, skidding to a stop when she saw Iris. Her eyes went wide, and for about 3 seconds she was completely silent. Then, who are you? I'm Iris. That's a flower name. I learned about flowers in school. Iris is purple. Emma looked at Caleb. Is she your friend? Yeah, she's staying with us for a little while. Cool. Do you like pancakes, Iris? Yes, pancakes are good. Dad makes really good ones. Sometimes he puts chocolate chips in them, but only if I eat all my vegetables the day before. Did you eat your vegetables yesterday? Iris looked genuinely confused. I had eggs. That's not vegetables. Dad, does Iris get chocolate chips? Caleb was trying not to laugh. How about we start with regular pancakes and work our way up to chocolate chips? Okay, but that seems unfair. Iris is a guest. Guests should get chocolate chips. Emma. Fine. Emma climbed onto one of the kitchen chairs and propped her chin in her hands, staring at Iris with unfiltered curiosity. Are you running away from something? Caleb nearly dropped the mixing bowl. Emma, that's not... It's okay, Iris said softly. She pulled out a chair and sat across from Emma. Kind of. Yeah. That's sad. Running away is sad. I ran away once when I was 4 because Mom said I couldn't have a puppy. But I only made it to the end of the street before I got scared and came back. That was very brave of you. Not really. I was crying the whole time. Emma kicked her feet against the chair legs. Are you sad? Iris met the kid's eyes and something passed between them that Caleb couldn't quite name. Yeah, I am sad. That's okay. Dad says it's okay to be sad sometimes. It means you're feeling things, and feeling things is important even when they're hard feelings. Your dad sounds pretty smart. He is. He knows everything about boats, and he can fix almost anything, and he makes the best grilled cheese in the whole world. Emma paused. Are you going to stay forever? No, sweetheart. Just for a little while. But you could stay forever if you wanted to. We have space, and Dad gets lonely sometimes, even though he says he doesn't. Emma, Caleb's voice had a warning edge now. What, you do? I hear you on the phone with Uncle Mike, and you always say you're fine, but you use your lonely voice. Iris was trying very hard not to smile. Caleb could see it in the way her mouth twitched. How about we focus on pancakes instead of psychoanalyzing me, Caleb said. What's psychoanalyzing? It's when someone tells you things about yourself that you didn't ask to know. Oh, like when I told you that you had something in your teeth last week. Exactly like that. Emma turned back to Iris. Do you have any kids? The question landed like a punch. Caleb saw Iris flinch, saw the color drain from her face. He was about to step in, redirect, but Iris spoke first. No, I don't have kids. Do you want them? Emma, enough questions. Let Iris breathe. But Emma was locked in now, her 6-year-old brain connecting dots that shouldn't be connected. It's okay if you don't want them. Not everyone wants kids. My teacher, Miss Rodriguez, says that's a valid choice. Miss Rodriguez is right, Iris said, her voice steadier now. It is a valid choice. But you seem like you'd be a good mom. You have kind eyes. Caleb watched Iris's face, waiting for her to shut down or leave or deflect. Instead, she leaned forward slightly and looked at Emma with something that might have been gratitude. Thank you, Iris said. That's one of the nicest things anyone's ever said to me. Emma beamed. You're welcome. Can I show you my rock collection after breakfast? I would love to see your rock collection. Crisis averted, Caleb went back to making pancakes. He listened to Emma chatter away at Iris, asking questions that ranged from reasonable to completely absurd. What's your favorite animal? Do you believe in ghosts? Have you ever been to space? Iris answered each one patiently, and Caleb caught himself relaxing in a way he hadn't expected. Maybe this would be okay. Maybe Emma's guileless curiosity was exactly what Iris needed. They ate breakfast at the table, Emma monopolizing most of the conversation with stories about the aquarium, and her friend Madison, who could do a cartwheel, and her other friend Jackson, who ate a crayon on a dare. Iris listened and nodded in the right places, and Caleb watched them both, feeling something shift in his chest. After breakfast, Emma made good on her promise to show Iris her rock collection. Caleb cleaned up the kitchen and tried to ignore the sound of his daughter's voice floating down from her bedroom, explaining the difference between granite and quartz, with the confidence of someone who'd watched exactly one YouTube video about rocks. An hour later, Emma appeared in the living room where Caleb was attempting to fix a broken drawer that had been broken for 6 months. Dad, Iris is really sad. Caleb set down the screwdriver. Yeah, kiddo, I know. Did someone hurt her? He should have known Emma would pick up on that. She saw everything, filed it all away, connected pieces that adults tried to keep separate. Yeah, I think so. That's not fair. No, it's not. Emma climbed onto the couch next to him, tucking herself under his arm the way she did when she was processing something big. Are we going to help her? We're trying to. Good, because she needs help, I can tell. How can you tell? She's got the same look you had when you and Mom first split up, like she's trying really hard to be okay, but she's really not. Caleb hugged his daughter a little tighter. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't notice because you're old. I'm 32. That's ancient. He laughed despite himself, and Emma giggled too, the sound bright and easy. Then she got serious again, her small face tilted up to look at him. Dad, can Iris stay for a long time? Not forever because she said she can't, but like a long time? I don't know, Em. That's up to her. But if she wanted to, could she? Caleb thought about that. Thought about the complications it would bring, the questions from Sarah, the way his quiet routine would shatter completely. Then he thought about Iris sitting at his table this morning, finally starting to look less like she might bolt at any second. Yeah, he said. If she wanted to, she could. Okay, I'm going to go tell her that. Emma, wait! But she was already gone, racing back down the hall. Caleb sighed and went back to the drawer. Kids had no sense of boundaries, no understanding of the careful dance adults did around each other. They just said what they meant and expected the world to keep up. Sometimes he envied that. The rest of the day unfolded in a strange kind of normalcy. Emma dragged Iris outside to see the tire swing Caleb had hung from the oak tree last summer. They played some game that seemed to involve a lot of running and shrieking, and Caleb watched from the porch, marveling at how easily Emma had pulled Iris into her orbit. By evening, though, Iris was fading. He could see it in the way she slowed down, the way she started to withdraw again. Emma noticed, too. Are you tired? Emma asked as they came back inside. A little bit. That's okay. Dad says I'm exhausting. You can rest. Iris smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Thank you for playing with me. You're welcome. We can play more tomorrow. I have a puzzle we could do. It's 1,000 pieces and it's really hard, but if we work together, we can probably finish it. That sounds nice. Emma hugged Iris suddenly, wrapping her arms around Iris's waist and squeezing tight. Iris froze for a second, like she'd forgotten how to respond to affection, then carefully put her arms around Emma and hugged her back. When Emma let go and skipped off to her room, Iris stayed there in the hallway, one hand pressed to her chest like she was trying to hold something in. You okay? Caleb asked. I don't... Iris shook her head. I don't deserve this. Deserve what? This. Her, any of it. Hey. Caleb moved closer, but didn't touch her. That's not how this works. Emma doesn't give her affection based on whether people deserve it. She gives it because she wants to. She doesn't know me. She knows enough. Iris looked at him, and there were tears in her eyes now, threatening to spill over. I'm a mess, Caleb. I don't even know what I'm doing here. I should have left this morning. But you didn't. I should have. But you didn't, he repeated, firmer this time. You stayed. You met Emma. You played with her. You're still here. That counts for something. What if I can't do this? What if I can't be around people without falling apart? Then you fall apart, and we'll help you put the pieces back together. The tears spilled over then, silent and steady. Iris pressed both hands to her face, and her shoulders shook. Caleb stood there, helpless and aching, wanting to fix this, but knowing he couldn't. Some things couldn't be fixed. They could only be survived. I'm sorry, Iris managed after a minute, wiping her face. I'm not usually like this. You've got nothing to apologize for. She laughed, wet and broken. I've been here 2 days and I'm already crying in your hallway. I think I have plenty to apologize for. Crying's not a crime. It feels like weakness. It's not. It's just proof you're still feeling things. That's more than a lot of people can say. Iris lowered her hands and looked at him. Really looked at him, like she was trying to figure out if he was real or just some trick her exhausted brain had conjured up. How are you so calm about all of this? I'm not calm. I'm just good at pretending I am. That's bullshit. Yeah, probably. He smiled. Look,
I'm going to make dinner. Something easy. You want to help or you want to rest? I'll help. They made spaghetti together, moving around the kitchen in that same careful orbit. Emma set the table without being asked, chattering the whole time about a book she'd read at her grandmother's house. They ate together, the three of them, and it felt almost like a family. Almost. After dinner, Emma wanted to watch a movie. She picked something animated that Caleb had seen at least 50 times, and they all settled on the couch. Emma in the middle, Caleb on one side, Iris on the other. Somewhere around the halfway point, Emma fell asleep with her head on Caleb's shoulder. Iris glanced over and smiled. She's out. Yeah, she crashes hard when she crashes. He looked down at his daughter's sleeping face. I should put her to bed. I can help. Together they carried Emma to her room. Iris pulled back the covers while Caleb laid her down and pulled off her shoes. Emma stirred slightly but didn't wake. Caleb kissed her forehead and turned on her nightlight, the one shaped like a moon. In the hallway, Iris stopped him. Thank you. For what? For letting me be part of this, today, her, all of it. You don't have to thank me. I do, though. You've given me something I didn't think I'd get again. What's that? A reason to stay. Caleb didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded, and they stood there in the dim hallway, the house quiet around them. I'm going to bed, Iris said finally. Good night, Caleb. Good night. He watched her disappear into the guest room, then went back to the living room and collapsed onto the couch. His phone buzzed. Sarah. How's it going with Em? Good. She's asleep. That was fast. Must have worn herself out. Everything else okay? Caleb stared at the phone, trying to figure out how to answer that. Everything was not okay. Everything was complicated and messy, and probably going to get worse before it got better. But it also wasn't bad. It was just different. Yeah, all good. Okay, let me know if you need anything. Will do. He set the phone down and closed his eyes. From down the hall, he could hear the old house settling, the wind picking up outside. Somewhere in the guest room, Iris was probably lying awake again, fighting whatever demons had chased her to that pier. And in her bedroom, Emma was dreaming about sea turtles and rocks, and maybe about the sad woman with kind eyes who'd shown up in their lives. Caleb didn't know how this was going to end. He didn't know if Iris would stay or go, if she'd heal or keep breaking, if letting her into their lives was the best thing or the worst thing he could have done. All he knew was that she was here now. And for tonight, that was enough. The next morning started the same way. Caleb on the couch, Iris emerging cautiously from the guest room, coffee that neither of them really wanted, but both of them drank anyway. Emma was up early, bursting with energy and questions. Can we go to the park today? Can Iris come, please? Caleb looked at Iris, who looked genuinely surprised by the invitation. You don't have to, he said. I want to, Iris said. If that's okay. Dad, say it's okay. It's okay. Emma cheered and ran off to get dressed. Caleb and Iris finished their coffee in silence, and when they got to the park an hour later, Emma dragged Iris straight to the swings. Caleb sat on a bench and watched them. Watched Iris push Emma higher and higher, Emma's laughter cutting through the morning air. Watched the way Iris's face softened, how some of that haunted look faded for just a moment. His phone buzzed. Sarah again. Mike said he saw you at the park with Emma and some woman. Everything I should know about? Caleb typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on, just a friend staying with us for a bit. Since when do you have friends I don't know about? Since now, I guess. Caleb. It's fine, Sarah. Really. She didn't respond after that, but he knew this conversation wasn't over. Sarah would want details, would want to make sure Emma was safe, would want to understand what the hell he was thinking bringing a stranger around their daughter. And honestly, he wasn't sure he had good answers to any of those questions. But watching Iris laugh, really laugh, for the first time since he'd found her, Caleb thought maybe he didn't need good answers yet. Maybe he just needed to trust that this was the right thing to do. Even if it was messy, even if it was complicated, even if it might all fall apart tomorrow. The conversation with Sarah came 3 days later, and it came hard. Caleb had just dropped Emma off at school when his phone rang. He knew before he answered what this was going to be about. Sarah had been patient, more patient than he'd expected, but her patience had limits, and he'd apparently reached them. We need to talk, Sarah said the moment he picked up. I figured. Not on the phone. Can you meet me for coffee? Caleb glanced at the time. He was supposed to be at the marina in an hour, but his boss owed him about 16 favors at this point. Yeah, the usual place? 20 minutes. She hung up before he could respond. Caleb sat in his truck for a moment, forehead pressed against the steering wheel, and tried to figure out what he was going to say. The truth was complicated. The truth was that he'd found a woman on a pier and brought her home, and now she was living in his guest room and bonding with their daughter. And when he said it like that, it sounded insane. Because it was insane. He texted his boss, got the expected grumbling response, and drove to the coffee shop where he and Sarah used to meet back when they were still trying to make the marriage work. It was neutral ground, familiar enough to be comfortable, but public enough to keep things civil. Sarah was already there when he arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups in front of her. She'd ordered for him, black coffee, no sugar, which meant she was either being considerate or setting up for a serious conversation. Probably both. Hey, Caleb said, sliding into the seat across from her. Hey. Sarah looked tired. She always looked tired these days, but this was different. This was the kind of tired that came from worry. So, you want to tell me what's going on? With what? Don't do that. Don't play dumb. Mike saw you at the park with some woman. Emma won't stop talking about Iris this and Iris that, and you've been dodging my questions for 3 days. Caleb took a sip of coffee, buying time. She's a friend who needed a place to stay. Since when do you have friends I've never heard of? Since recently. Caleb. He set down the cup. Look, I know how this looks. I know it's weird, but it's not. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. So he did. Not everything. He didn't tell her about the pier, about finding Iris beaten and broken, about the way she'd looked wearing his shirt that first morning. But enough. He told her that Iris was going through something, that she needed help, that he'd offered his spare room temporarily. Sarah listened without interrupting, her lawyer face firmly in place. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. And you thought this was appropriate? She said finally. Bringing a stranger around our daughter without even telling me? She's not dangerous. You don't know that. Yeah, I do. Based on what? Your gut feeling? Your incredible track record of making good decisions? That one landed. Caleb felt it hit, felt the old shame rise up in his throat. That's not fair, isn't it? You've been sober for 3 years, Caleb. 3 good years. You've worked so hard to get your life stable, to prove you can be the father Emma needs, and now you're jeopardizing all of that for some woman you barely know? I'm not jeopardizing anything. You're letting a stranger live in your house, a stranger Emma is getting attached to. What happens when this Iris decides to leave? What happens when Emma asks where she went, and you have to explain that you let someone into her life who was never planning to stay? Caleb didn't have a good answer for that. He'd thought about it. Of course he'd thought about it, but he'd been pushing it down, telling himself they'd deal with it when it happened. Emma's tougher than you think, he said. She's 6. And she's smart. She knows Iris is temporary. Does she? Sarah leaned forward. Because from what I'm hearing, she thinks Iris is her new best friend. She told me yesterday that Iris understands her in a way most adults don't. Those were her words. Understands her. That doesn't sound temporary to me. Caleb rubbed his face. I don't know what you want me to say here. I want you to think about what you're doing. I want you to consider that maybe, just maybe, you're so desperate to fix something that you're not seeing the bigger picture. This isn't about me trying to fix anything. No? Then what's it about? He started to answer, then stopped. Because the truth was, he didn't entirely know. He'd told himself it was just about helping someone who needed help, but Sarah was right. He'd been working so hard to prove he could be stable, reliable, the kind of father Emma deserved, and now he'd thrown all of that into chaos for a woman he'd known less than a week. She reminds me of how I felt, Caleb said quietly, after everything fell apart, like the world had chewed her up and spit her out, and she didn't know if she could get back up. Sarah's expression softened slightly. I get that. I do. But Caleb, you can't save everyone. I'm not trying to save her. I'm just trying to give her a chance. At what cost? I don't know yet. Sarah sighed and sat back. I'm not trying to be the bad guy here. I just need to know that Emma's safe, that you're thinking clearly. She's safe, I promise. And when Iris leaves? Because she will leave, Caleb. People like that. People running from something. They always leave. Then we'll deal with it when it happens. Sarah studied him for a long moment. You really care about her, don't you? This Iris. Caleb hadn't let himself think about it in those terms.
Care was a loaded word, full of implications he wasn't ready to face. But sitting there across from his ex-wife, he couldn't deny it completely. I care that she's okay, he said carefully. I care that she's safe. That's not what I asked. It's the only answer I've got right now. Sarah nodded slowly, like she'd expected that. Okay, here's what's going to happen. I want to meet her, this Iris. If she's going to be around Emma, I need to know who she is. Sarah, that's non-negotiable. You want her to stay fine, but I meet her first. And if I get any bad vibes, any sense that she's not stable or safe, she's gone. Understood? Caleb wanted to argue, wanted to tell her that Iris deserved privacy, that she wasn't some criminal who needed to be vetted. But he also understood where Sarah was coming from. Emma was her daughter too, and she had every right to make sure the people around Emma were trustworthy. Okay, he said. I'll talk to her.
Today. Sarah.
Today, Caleb. I'm serious. He nodded. There was no point in fighting her on this. I'll set it up. They finished their coffee in tense silence, and when Sarah left, Caleb sat there for another 10 minutes, trying to figure out how the hell he was going to explain this to Iris. He drove back to the cabin slowly, rehearsing different versions of the conversation in his head. None of them sounded good.
Hey, Iris, my ex-wife wants to interrogate you to make sure you're not a danger to my kid. Yeah, that would go over great.
Iris was in the kitchen when he got home, washing dishes from breakfast. She looked up when he came in, and he could see the question in her eyes. Everything okay? She asked. Define okay. She dried her hands on a towel and turned to face him fully. What happened? Caleb leaned against the counter. Sarah wants to meet you. Iris went very still. Your ex-wife.
Yeah. Why?
Because you're staying here, because Emma talks about you constantly, because Sarah needs to make sure you're not... He stopped, not sure how to finish that sentence without it sounding terrible. Not a threat, Iris finished for him. She needs to make sure I'm not a threat to her daughter. It's not personal. It feels pretty personal. I know, but she's within her rights. Emma's her kid too. Iris crossed her arms, that defensive posture Caleb had come to recognize. And if I say no? Then you say no. I can't force you to do this. But if I don't, I have to leave. Caleb wanted to tell her that wasn't true, that she could stay regardless. But they both knew that was a lie. Sarah had made it clear. Meet her, or this arrangement was over. I don't want you to leave, Caleb said. But I also can't put Emma in the middle of this. If Sarah's not comfortable, then we have to figure something else out. Iris looked down at her hands. What did you tell her about me? Just that you needed a place to stay, that you're going through some stuff. I didn't give her details. But she knows I'm running from something. She suspects. Yeah. For a long moment, Iris didn't say anything. Then she looked up, and there was something raw in her expression. What if she takes one look at me and decides I'm too damaged, too broken? Then she's wrong. You don't know that. Yeah, I do. Caleb moved closer. Look, Sarah's not a bad person. She's just protective. If you talk to her, if you're honest with her, she'll see what I see. And what's that? Someone who's trying really hard to put herself back together. Iris's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. When does she want to meet? Today. This afternoon. That's not a lot of notice. I know, but that's Sarah. When she makes a decision, she moves fast. Iris nodded slowly. Okay, I'll do it. You sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Caleb wanted to hug her, wanted to tell her it would be okay, but he didn't know if that was true, so instead he just said, Thank you. Sarah arrived at 3, pulling up in her sensible sedan with her lawyer briefcase and her carefully neutral expression. Caleb met her at the door, and Iris was standing in the living room looking like she was about to face a firing squad. Sarah, this is Iris. Iris, Sarah? Sarah extended her hand and Iris shook it carefully. Nice to meet you. You too. Sarah's voice was polite but measured. She was in evaluation mode, taking everything in. Caleb mentioned you're staying here for a while. Just temporarily, until I figure out my next step. And what is your next step? Caleb jumped in. Sarah, maybe we could sit down. This doesn't have to be an interrogation. Sarah shot him a look, but moved to the couch. Iris sat in the chair across from her, and Caleb positioned himself between them, feeling like a referee. I'm not trying to be difficult, Sarah said, directing her words at Iris. I just need to understand the situation. My daughter is spending time with you, and I need to know who you are. I understand, Iris said quietly. If I were you, I'd want the same thing. So tell me, who are you? It was a loaded question, the kind that didn't have a simple answer. Caleb watched Iris struggle with it, saw her trying to figure out how much to reveal. I'm someone who made some bad choices, Iris said finally. I was with someone who wasn't good for me, for a long time. And when I finally left, I didn't have anywhere to go. Caleb found me at a bad moment and offered to help. What kind of bad choices? Sarah, Caleb warned, it's okay. Iris's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking in her lap. I stayed with someone who hurt me. I let myself believe that I deserved it, and when I finally realized I didn't, it was almost too late. Sarah's expression shifted slightly. He hit you. It wasn't a question. Iris nodded. Are you safe now? Is he looking for you? I don't know. I hope not. But you don't know. No. Sarah looked at Caleb, and he could see the calculation happening behind her eyes. She was weighing risks, considering scenarios, doing what she always did, protecting Emma first. I need to know that my daughter isn't in danger, Sarah said. If there's any chance this man might show up here? There's no chance, Iris said quickly. He doesn't know where I am. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just ran. People can be found. I know, but I'm being careful. Sarah didn't look convinced. Caleb, can we talk? Privately? Caleb followed her out to the porch, leaving Iris alone in the living room. The moment the door closed, Sarah rounded on him. Are you out of your mind? Here we go. Don't here we go me. She's running from an abusive ex who might come looking for her, and you brought her into our daughter's life? He's not going to find her. You don't know that. I know enough. Caleb kept his voice low but firm. Sarah, I've seen what this guy did to her. The bruises, the fear. She's terrified, and she's trying to rebuild. I'm not going to throw her out because of a hypothetical threat. It's not hypothetical if he shows up on your doorstep. Then I'll deal with it. With Emma in the house? That stopped him. Because she was right. If Iris's ex did show up, if there was any kind of confrontation, Emma could be caught in the middle. And that was unacceptable. I won't let anything happen to her, Caleb said. To either of them. Sarah studied his face for a long moment. You really care about this woman. I already told you. I know what you told me. I'm telling you what I see. She crossed her arms. Just be careful, okay? You've worked so hard to get your life together. Don't throw it away trying to save someone who might not want to be saved. She wants to be saved. She's just scared. Aren't we all? They stood there in silence for a moment, and Caleb could see Sarah softening. She wasn't convinced, but she was willing to consider it. That was something. I'm not saying she has to leave, Sarah said finally, but I'm saying you need to be smart about this. Set boundaries. Have a plan for if things go south. And for the love of everything, don't let Emma get so attached that she's devastated when Iris inevitably moves on. Noted. I'm serious, Caleb. I know you are. You. They went back inside, and Iris was exactly where they'd left her, sitting in the chair with her hands folded in her lap. She looked up when they entered, her expression carefully blank. Sarah sat back down. Okay, here's what's going to happen. You can stay, for now, but I need you to promise me something. Anything, Iris said. If your ex shows up, if there's any indication that Emma might be in danger, you leave. Immediately. No arguments, no negotiations. You just go. Iris's face crumpled slightly, but she nodded. I promise. And I want regular updates. From both of you. Sarah looked at Caleb. I want to know how this is going, how Emma's handling it, everything. Done, Caleb said. Sarah stood. Okay then. I guess we'll see how this goes. She left without another word, and Caleb walked her out to her car.
Before she got in, she turned to him one more time. "She seems nice," Sarah said quietly. "Broken, but nice."
She is. But just don't break yourself trying to fix her. Emma needs you whole.
"I know." Sarah squeezed his arm briefly, then got in her car and drove away. Caleb stood there for a moment, watching her taillights disappear, then went back inside. Iris was still in the chair, crying silently. Caleb sat on the coffee table in front of her. "Hey, you did good." "I almost cost you your daughter." "No, you didn't. Sarah's just careful, but she said you could stay." Iris wiped her eyes. "For now, until I inevitably screw it up." "You're not going to screw it up. You don't know that." "I know you're trying. That's enough." She looked at him, really looked at him, and something passed between them. Something Caleb couldn't quite name but felt deep in his chest. "Why are you doing this?" Iris asked. "Really? What are you getting out of helping me?" Caleb thought about that. About the real answer, the one he'd been avoiding. Maybe I'm not doing it for me. Maybe some things are just worth doing. Nothing's free. Everyone wants something. Not everyone. She didn't look convinced, but she didn't argue either. She just sat there, this fragile woman in his living room who'd crashed into his life and refused to leave quietly. Later that night, after Caleb had picked up Emma from school and made dinner and supervised homework, he found Iris on the porch again. She was sitting on the steps, staring out at the dark trees. "Can't sleep?" he asked, sitting down beside her. "Never can." They sat in silence for a while. Then Iris spoke. "I worked at a bakery once, before. It was this little place downtown, family-owned. The owner was this old woman named Margaret, who made the best croissants I've ever tasted. What happened? I had to leave. He didn't like me having my own money, my own space. So I quit." She pulled her knees to her chest. "I think about that sometimes. About what my life might have looked like if I'd stayed, if I'd fought harder." "You're fighting now." "Am I? Or am I just running and calling it fighting?" "Maybe they're the same thing sometimes." Iris smiled sadly. "Maybe." Emma called from inside, wanting Caleb to come say goodnight. He stood, but Iris caught his hand. "Thank you," she said. "For today. For Sarah. For all of it." "You're welcome." He went inside, tucked Emma into bed, and when he came back out, Iris was gone. Her door was closed, and the house was quiet. Caleb stood in the hallway and wondered how much longer this could last. How much longer before Iris decided she was ready to leave, or before Sarah decided she wasn't comfortable, or before something broke that couldn't be fixed. But tonight, everyone was still here, still trying, and that had to count for something. The next morning brought rain, heavy and relentless. Emma was disappointed. She'd wanted to go to the park again, but Iris suggested they bake cookies instead. "I used to work at a bakery," she told Emma. "I could teach you." Emma's eyes lit up. "Really? Can we make chocolate chip?" "We can make whatever you want." They spent the morning in the kitchen, flour everywhere, Emma's laughter mixing with the sound of rain on the roof. Caleb watched from the doorway, and something in his chest ached. This felt like family. It felt like home, and that terrified him more than anything else. The cookies were still warm when Iris mentioned the bakery again, this time with something different in her voice. Not just nostalgia, but something closer to longing. "I miss it," she said, watching Emma carefully arrange chocolate chips on the last batch. The rhythm of it. Getting up early, the smell of bread baking, watching people's faces when they bite into something you made. Caleb looked up from where he was washing mixing bowls. "You ever think about going back? To baking, I mean." "I think about it all the time, but I don't have the skills Margaret had. I was just learning when I had to leave." "You're doing pretty good right now." He nodded toward the cooling racks covered in cookies that actually looked professional. "This is different. This is easy. A real bakery is—" She stopped, shook her head. "It doesn't matter. That life's gone." "Doesn't have to be." Emma tugged on Iris's sleeve. "These are ready for the oven." The moment passed, but Caleb filed it away. Over the next few days, he started noticing things. The way Iris's hands moved when she was cooking, confident and precise. The way she'd get lost in the process, that haunted look fading from her eyes for a little while. The way she'd hum sometimes, barely audible, like she was remembering something good.
A week later, Caleb came home from the marina to find Iris sitting at the kitchen table with a newspaper spread out in front of her. She'd circled something in red pen. "What's that?" he asked. She looked up, and there was something tentative in her expression. "There's a bakery in town, small place. They're looking for help." "You thinking about applying?" "I don't know, maybe. Is that stupid?" "Why would it be stupid?" "Because I don't have a resume. I don't have references. I don't even have an ID right now." Her voice got smaller. "I don't have anything." Caleb sat down across from her. "You have skills, you have experience. That's something." "Not enough." "You won't know unless you try." Iris stared at the circled ad like it might bite her. "What if they ask questions? About where I've been, why I left my last job?" "Then you tell them the truth. Not all of it, but enough. You were in a bad situation, you got out, you're starting over. And if they say no, then you try somewhere else." She was quiet for a long moment, her finger tracing the edge of the newspaper. "I'm scared." "I know. What if I'm not ready?" "What if you are?" That got a small smile. Iris folded the paper carefully and stood. "I need to think about it." "Take your time. The ad's not going anywhere." But the next morning, Iris was up before sunrise. Caleb found her in the bathroom trying to do something with her hair that didn't look like she'd been sleeping on a stranger's couch for 2 weeks. She'd borrowed one of his nicer shirts, a button-down he wore maybe twice a year, and paired it with the only pants she had that weren't leggings. "You're going," he said from the doorway. She met his eyes in the mirror. "I'm going." "You want a ride?" "It's only a few blocks. I can walk." "Iris," she turned around. "I need to do this myself. If I can't even walk into a bakery alone, then what's the point?" Caleb understood that. He'd had those moments too, after rehab, when he'd had to prove to himself that he could function without someone holding his hand. "Okay, but take my phone, just in case." "I don't need—" "Take it anyway." She did, slipping it into her pocket. Then she stood there, frozen, like her feet had forgotten how to move. "You've got this," Caleb said. "You don't know that." "Yeah, I do." Iris took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and walked out. Caleb watched from the porch as she headed down the road, getting smaller and smaller until she disappeared around the bend. Then he went back inside and tried to distract himself with work, with anything that would keep him from checking the clock every 5 minutes. Emma was with Sarah for the week, which meant the cabin was too quiet. Just Caleb and his thoughts, and the very real possibility that Iris would come back in an hour, defeated, and he'd have to watch her fold in on herself again. But an hour passed, then 2, then 3. By the time his phone finally rang, Caleb had convinced himself something had gone wrong. He grabbed it on the first ring. "Iris?" "I got it." Her voice was breathless, disbelieving. "I got the job." Relief flooded through him so hard he had to sit down. "That's great. When do you start?" "Tomorrow. Early shift, 5 in the morning." She laughed, the sound light and genuine. "I haven't gotten up at 5 in forever." "You'll manage." Yeah, I think I will." There was noise in the background, voices and the distant clatter of dishes. "Where are you?" "Still at the bakery." "The owner, his name's Thomas. He's showing me around. I should go. I just wanted to let you know." "I'm proud of you." Silence on the other end, then quietly, "Thank you." She hung up, and Caleb sat there holding the phone, feeling like something important had just shifted. Iris had a job. A real job. That meant she was building something, putting down roots, even if they were shallow ones. That meant she might actually stay. The thought should have made him happy. Instead, it scared him half to death. Iris came home late that afternoon with a white paper bag and a smile that Caleb hadn't seen before. Not the small, careful smiles she'd been giving him and Emma. This was different. This was real. "What's in the bag?" he asked. "Bread. Thomas let me take home the day-olds." She set it on the counter and pulled out a round loaf that smelled like heaven. "It's sourdough. I watched him make it this morning. The whole process is—" She stopped, shook her head. "Sorry, I'm rambling." "Don't apologize. It's good to see you excited about something." Forgot what this felt like, having something to look forward to. She broke off a piece of bread and handed it to him. "Try it." He did. It was perfect.
Crusty outside, soft inside, just the right amount of tang. This is incredible, right? Thomas has been baking for 40 years. He learned from his father, who learned from his father. There's this whole lineage of bread making, and now I get to be part of it. She caught herself, pulled back slightly. I mean, if I don't screw it up. You won't. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Iris looked at him for a long moment, and something passed between them again. That same unnamed thing that kept showing up at the edges of their conversations. Too big to ignore, but too fragile to examine closely. I should get some sleep, she said finally. 5 comes early. Yeah, good night, Iris. Good night. She disappeared into the guest room, and Caleb stood in the kitchen with half a loaf of sourdough and a feeling in his chest he couldn't quite identify. It felt like hope, but sharper, more dangerous. The next morning, Iris was gone before he woke up. She'd left a note on the counter, just a simple thanks for everything, and Caleb found himself staring at it longer than necessary, looking for hidden meaning in 3 words. The day felt wrong without her there. He went to work at the marina, came home to an empty cabin, made himself dinner that he barely tasted. He kept expecting her to walk through the door, to fill the space with her quiet presence. She didn't come home until after 8, and when she did, she looked exhausted but lighter somehow, like something heavy had been set down. How was it? Caleb asked. Hard. My feet hurt and I burned my hand on a sheet pan and I probably did everything wrong. She collapsed onto the couch. It was perfect. Caleb sat in the chair across from her. Thomas treat you okay? He's gruff. Doesn't say much, but he's patient. When I messed up the croissant fold, he just showed me again. No yelling, no making me feel stupid. She pulled off her shoes and rubbed her feet. I think I'm going to like it there. Good. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Iris spoke again, her voice softer. I've been thinking about what you said, about second chances. Yeah? I think maybe I'm starting to believe you, that I deserve one. You do. I don't know if I'll ever be able to repay you for this, for everything you've done. I don't want you to repay me. Then what do you want? It was a loaded question, one Caleb wasn't ready to answer honestly, because what he wanted was complicated. He wanted Iris to heal. He wanted her to find herself again, but he also wanted her to stay, and those 2 things might not be compatible. I want you to be okay, he said finally. That's all. Iris nodded slowly, and if she suspected there was more to it than that, she didn't push. She just stood, stretched, and headed toward the hallway. Iris? She turned back. I'm glad you're here. She smiled, and for the first time since he'd found her on that pier, it reached her eyes. Me too. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm. Iris would leave before dawn and come home in the afternoon smelling like flour and yeast. She'd tell Caleb and Emma about her day, about the regular customers who came in every morning for the same order, about Thomas's dry humor, about the way bread dough felt under her hands. Emma loved hearing these stories. She'd beg Iris to teach her different techniques, and on weekends they'd take over the kitchen, creating increasingly ambitious baked goods. Some worked, some didn't, but Emma didn't care. She was just happy to be included. Caleb watched all of this from the sidelines, and the fear he'd felt that first week started to ease into something else, something that felt dangerously close to contentment. Then, 3 weeks into Iris's job, everything changed. Caleb was at the marina when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello? Is this Caleb Hayes? A man's voice, older, strained. Yeah, who's this? My name is Thomas Brennan. I own the bakery where Iris works. Caleb's stomach dropped. Is she okay? Look, something happened. I'm at the hospital. She asked me to call you. What happened? Heart attack. Mine, not hers. Thomas's voice was shaky. I collapsed during the morning rush. Iris was the one who called the ambulance, stayed with me until they got here. She's still here, actually. Won't leave. Relief and concern warred in Caleb's chest. Which hospital? Thomas told him, and Caleb was moving before the man even finished talking. He called his boss, said there was an emergency, and drove to the hospital faster than he probably should have. He found Iris in the waiting room, still wearing her flour-dusted apron, her hands clasped tight in her lap. When she saw him, something in her face crumbled. Hey, Caleb said, sitting beside her. You okay?
He's in surgery. They said it was bad. He might not. Her voice cracked. I should have seen it coming. He was pale this morning, kept rubbing his chest, but I thought he was just tired. This isn't your fault. I was right there. I should have done something sooner.
You did exactly what you were supposed to do. You called for help. You stayed with him. Caleb took her hand and she didn't pull away. You probably saved his life. Or I'm about to watch someone else die because I wasn't good enough. Iris, look at me. She did, and her eyes were red-rimmed, terrified. You didn't kill anyone, Caleb said firmly. Whatever happens in there, that's not on you. You don't understand. When I was with him, with my ex, his father had a stroke. I was there. I froze. I just stood there while he was dying, and by the time I finally called for help, it was too late. Tears were streaming down her face now. Everyone said I should have acted faster, that if I'd just done something, anything, he might have lived, and maybe they were right. Or maybe his stroke was too severe and nothing would have helped. Did you ever consider that? Every day. But it doesn't change the fact that I failed. You didn't fail today. You don't know that yet. They sat there in the awful fluorescent light of the waiting room, surrounded by other people's worry and fear. Caleb kept holding her hand, and Iris kept crying, and hours crawled by with no news. Finally, a doctor emerged. Family of Thomas Brennan? Iris stood up. I work for him. The doctor looked tired but not devastated, and Caleb took that as a good sign. He's stable. We had to put in 2 stents, but he made it through surgery. He's going to be in ICU for a few days, but barring complications, he should recover. Iris swayed on her feet, and Caleb caught her elbow. He's okay? He's alive. And from what I understand, that's largely because of you. You recognized the symptoms, called immediately, and kept him calm until the paramedics arrived. You did everything right. Can I see him? Not yet. He needs to rest, but check back tomorrow. The doctor left, and Iris turned to Caleb. I did everything right. Yeah, you did. She laughed then, this broken, relieved sound, and Caleb pulled her into a hug. She collapsed against him, shaking, and he just held her while she fell apart in the middle of a hospital waiting room. When she finally pulled back, her face was blotchy and her eyes were puffy, but she looked different, lighter. I didn't freeze, she said wonderingly. I was terrified, but I didn't freeze. No, you didn't. For so long, I thought I was the kind of person who freezes, who runs, but I didn't run today. No, you didn't. Iris wiped her face with her apron, leaving white streaks of flour across her cheeks. Can we go home? Yeah, let's go home. They drove back to the cabin in silence, and when they got there, Iris went straight to the guest room and closed the door. Caleb gave her space, made some calls to let Emma know he'd pick her up a day early from Sarah's, and tried to process what had just happened. Iris hadn't run. When faced with crisis, when given every excuse to bolt, she'd stayed. She'd fought. That meant something. Caleb wasn't sure what yet, but it meant something. Later that night, there was a knock on his bedroom door. Caleb opened it to find Iris standing there in borrowed pajamas, looking small and lost. Can we talk? She asked. Of course. They went to the living room, and Iris curled up on one end of the couch, while Caleb took the other end. I need to tell you something, she said, about why I was really on that pier. Caleb waited. He'd been waiting for this since the night he found her, knowing it would come eventually but not wanting to push. I was going to jump, Iris said quietly. That's why I was there. I'd planned it all out, wait until dark, walk to the end of the pier, just step off. She was looking at her hands, not at him. I'd been planning it for weeks. It felt like the only way out. Caleb's chest tightened, but he kept his voice steady. What stopped you? I don't know. Fear, maybe. Or maybe some small part of me that wasn't ready to give up yet. I stood there for hours, going back and forth, and then I collapsed. All the energy went out of me, and I couldn't move. She finally looked up at him. And then you were there. I'm glad I was there. So am I. Now. But at the time, I was so angry. I'd finally worked up the courage to end it, and then this stranger swooped in and ruined everything. She laughed without humor. I actually hated you for a little while, those first few days. I figured. But then Emma happened, and the bakery happened, and Thomas happened, and I started to remember what it felt like to be alive. Really alive, not just existing. She pulled her knees to her chest. I'm still scared all the time, still waiting for something to go wrong. But today, when Thomas collapsed, I didn't think about running. I just thought about saving him. You did save him. Maybe. Or maybe I just didn't screw up for once. She rested her chin on her knees. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I think I'm just trying to say thank you for not leaving me on that pier, for giving me a reason to stay. You don't have to thank me for that. Yeah, I do. They sat in silence for a while, the weight of Iris's confession hanging between them. Caleb wanted to tell her that she was worth saving, that she'd always been worth saving, but he wasn't sure she was ready to hear it yet. What happens now? Iris asked. With Thomas. He recovers. You keep working at the bakery. Life goes on. Just like that? Just like that. What if he decides to sell? What if he can't run the bakery anymore? Then you'll figure it out. You're good at that. Iris smiled slightly. When did you become such an optimist? I'm not an optimist. I'm just realistic about your capabilities. My capabilities? Yeah. You're stronger than you think, Iris. Today proved that. She looked at him for a long moment, and Caleb could see her trying to believe it, trying to reconcile the person she thought she was with the person she was becoming. I should let you sleep, she said finally, unfolding herself from the couch. Iris? She paused. I'm really proud of you for today, for all of it. Her eyes filled with tears again, but she was smiling. Good night, Caleb. Good night. He watched her walk back to the guest room, and when her door clicked shut, Caleb sat there in the dark and let himself feel the full weight of what she'd told him. She'd been ready to die. He'd saved her without even knowing it, and now she was saving herself. The next morning, Iris went back to the hospital. Thomas was awake and grouchy, complaining about the food and the nurses and the fact that he was stuck in a bed when there was bread that needed baking. You're impossible, Iris told him, but she was smiling. And you're too young to be this good at bread, Thomas shot back. It's unnatural. You're the one who taught me. 3 weeks. I taught you for 3 weeks. You shouldn't be this competent yet. Iris sat in the uncomfortable hospital chair beside his bed. What's going to happen? To the bakery? Thomas sighed. I don't know yet. Doctors say I need to take it easy for a while, months maybe. Can't be on my feet all day like I used to be. I could help. Run things while you're recovering. You've been there 3 weeks. I know, but I can do it. I know I can. Thomas studied her for a long moment. Why do you care so much? It's just a job. It's not just a job. Not to me. Iris looked down at her hands. For a long time, I didn't think I deserved to have anything good. I thought I'd used up all my chances. But that bakery, being there, learning from you, it made me remember that I'm capable of something besides just surviving. You're capable of a hell of a lot more than bread. Maybe. But bread's a good start. Thomas was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. Okay, you can run the bakery while I'm out, but I'm still making decisions. And if you burn the place down, I'm haunting you. Iris laughed, bright and genuine. Deal. When she got back to the cabin that afternoon, Caleb was on the porch with Emma, who'd insisted on coming home early to see Iris. Iris! Emma launched herself off the steps. Dad said you saved someone's life. I just called for help, sweetie. That's still saving someone. You're a hero. Iris caught Caleb's eye over Emma's head, and he shrugged. He'd kept it simple when explaining to Emma. Thomas got sick, Iris helped. Everything was okay now. I'm not a hero, Iris said, kneeling down to Emma's level. I just did what anyone would do. Not everyone freezes when bad things happen, Emma said seriously. Dad told me that. He said some people freeze and some people fight, and you're a fighter. Iris's eyes got shiny. Your dad said that? Yep. Are you going to cry? It's okay if you cry. Dad says crying is healthy. Dad says a lot of things, Caleb cut in, but he was smiling. Iris stood and wiped her eyes. Thomas asked me to run the bakery while he recovers. That's amazing, Caleb said. It's terrifying. Those can be the same thing. Emma tugged on Iris's hand. Does this mean you're staying? For real staying? Iris looked at Caleb, then back at Emma.
Yeah, I think it does. Emma cheered and hugged Iris again, and over her head, Iris mouthed thank you to Caleb. He nodded. Because what else could he do? This woman had walked into his life broken and scared, and now she was standing on his porch talking about staying, about building something, about fighting instead of running. And somewhere along the way, Caleb had stopped just helping her. He'd started falling for her. The realization hit him like a truck, and he had to look away before Iris could see it written all over his face. This was complicated. This was dangerous. This was everything he'd been trying to avoid. But it was also real. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The realization didn't go away. If anything, it got worse over the next few weeks, settling into Caleb's chest like something permanent. He'd catch himself watching Iris when she wasn't looking, the way she'd tuck her hair behind her ear while reading, the way she'd hum while cooking, the way she'd light up when Emma told her about school. Every small moment felt significant, and that terrified him, because this wasn't supposed to happen. He was supposed to help her get back on her feet, and then let her go. That was the plan. That was safe. Falling for her was neither of those things. Iris was thriving at the bakery. Thomas came in a few times a week to check on things, but mostly he left her to run it. She'd hired a part-time assistant, a kid fresh out of culinary school who looked at her like she hung the moon. The regulars had accepted her seamlessly, and the bakery's sales were actually up. She's a natural, Thomas told Caleb one afternoon when he stopped by to pick up bread. Better than I was at her age, and that's saying something. She works hard. It's more than that. She cares. You can taste it in the bread. Thomas wrapped up a sourdough loaf and handed it over. You two together? The question caught Caleb off guard. What? No, she's just staying with me. Uh-huh. Thomas didn't look convinced. You know what they say about people who save each other? What do they say? That it's either the best thing that ever happened to them or the worst. No in between. Caleb took the bread and left before Thomas could get any more philosophical. But the old man's words stuck with him. Save each other. Was that what they were doing? He'd saved Iris from the pier, from whatever darkness had driven her there. But had she saved him too? From what? From loneliness, maybe? From the slow, quiet despair of going through the motions without really living. He was still thinking about it when he got home and found Iris in the kitchen, making dinner. She'd started doing that more often, cooking for the three of them when Emma was there, for just the two of them when she wasn't. It felt domestic in a way that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't. Hey, she said, looking up from the stove. How was work? Same as always, boats, water, tourists who don't know how to tie a knot. He set the bread on the counter. Thomas says hi. He needs to rest more. I caught him trying to knead dough yesterday. You can't stop him. The man's been baking for 40 years. Doesn't mean he should kill himself doing it. Iris stirred whatever was in the pot, then turned to face him. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you ever regret it, bringing me here? The question hit harder than it should have. No, why would you ask that? Because your life was stable before I showed up. You had a routine, a system, and I came in and disrupted all of that. Disruption isn't always bad, isn't it? She crossed her arms, that defensive posture he hadn't seen in weeks. I'm living in your guest room, eating your food, taking up space in your life. And for what? What are you getting out of this? Iris, no, I'm serious. Everyone wants something, so what do you want? Caleb could have lied, should have lied, but standing there in his kitchen with Iris looking at him like she was bracing for a blow, he couldn't do it. I want you to be happy, he said. That's all I've ever wanted. That's not enough. That can't be all there is. Why not? Because people don't work like that. People don't just give without expecting something in return. I do. Iris laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're lying. I'm not. Then you're deluding yourself. She turned back to the stove, her movements sharp and angry. Nothing's free, Caleb. I learned that a long time ago. I'm not him. She froze. What? I'm not your ex. I'm not going to hurt you or manipulate you or make you feel like you owe me something. I'm just... He stopped, searching for the right words. I'm just trying to be a decent person. Nobody's that decent. Then maybe I'm the exception. Iris turned around slowly, and there were tears in her eyes.
Why? Why are you like this? Because someone was decent to me once. When I was at my lowest, when I'd burned every bridge and destroyed everything good in my life, someone gave me a chance anyway. They didn't have to. I didn't deserve it. But they did it anyway, and it saved my life. He took a step closer. So now I'm paying it forward. That's all this is. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. You just don't want to believe it. She wiped her eyes roughly. What if I can't? What if I'm too broken to believe that good things can happen without a price? Then I'll keep proving it to you until you do. They stood there in the kitchen, dinner forgotten, and something shifted between them. Something big and terrifying and impossible to ignore. I don't know how to do this, Iris said quietly. How to just accept kindness without waiting for the other shoe to drop. Then we'll figure it out together. What if I can't ever figure it out? What if I'm always going to be the scared, damaged person? Then you'll be a scared, damaged person who makes incredible bread and makes my kid laugh and is trying really hard to put herself back together. That's enough. Iris let out a shaky breath. You're infuriating, you know that? Yeah, I've been told. She almost smiled, then caught herself. The soup's going to burn. Then turn it off. Caleb, turn it off, Iris.
She did, moving to the stove and clicking off the burner. When she turned back, Caleb was right there, close enough to touch, but not touching. I need to tell you something, he said. What? I think I'm falling for you. The words hung in the air between them, impossible to take back. Iris's eyes went wide, and for a moment Caleb thought she might run, thought she might grab her things and disappear into the night like she'd been planning to do since day one. Instead, she started crying. Not the quiet, controlled tears she usually allowed herself, but full-on sobbing, her whole body shaking with it. Hey, it's okay. Caleb pulled her into his arms, and she collapsed against him. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said anything. No, it's not. She couldn't get the words out through the crying. I'm not. Breathe. Just breathe. It took a few minutes for her to calm down enough to speak. When she finally did, her voice was muffled against his chest. I think I'm falling for you too, and it terrifies me. Caleb's heart stuttered. Yeah? Yeah. She pulled back enough to look at him, her face blotchy and wet. But I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be with someone without it turning into something terrible. We'll figure it out. You keep saying that. Because it's true. What if it's not? What if I mess this up like I mess up everything else? Then we'll deal with it. Together. He wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. I'm not asking you to be perfect, Iris. I'm just asking you to try. She looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for something. Whatever she found must have been enough because she nodded slowly. Okay, she whispered. Okay. They stood there in the kitchen, holding each other while the soup cooled on the stove, and Caleb felt something settle in his chest, something that felt like hope, but steadier, more real. The next few weeks were strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. They didn't tell Emma right away. It felt too new, too fragile. But she seemed to sense something had changed anyway. She started asking questions about whether Iris was going to live with them forever, whether she'd be there for Emma's birthday next month, whether she'd teach Emma how to make croissants. Why all the questions? Caleb asked one night while tucking her in. Emma shrugged. I just want to make sure she's not going to leave. What makes you think she's going to leave? Everyone leaves eventually. Mom left. Grandma Janet moved away. My friend Maddie moved to California. Emma picked at her bedspread. I don't want Iris to leave too. Caleb sat on the edge of her bed. People leave for different reasons, kiddo. Sometimes it's because they have to, not because they want to. But Iris doesn't have to leave, right? She has the bakery now, and us. Right. So she's staying? Caleb wanted to promise that, wanted to give Emma the certainty she was asking for. But he also knew better than to make promises he couldn't keep. I think so, but that's something you should ask her. Emma considered this. Okay, I will. And she did, the very next morning at breakfast. Just came right out with it while Iris was pouring orange juice. Are you going to live here forever? Iris nearly dropped the pitcher. What? I want to know if you're staying. Dad said I should ask you. Emma, Caleb warned, but Iris held up a hand. It's okay. She set down the pitcher and knelt beside Emma's chair. I don't know about forever. That's a really long time. But I'm not planning to leave anytime soon. Is that okay? What's anytime soon? I don't know exactly, but I'm happy here, with you and your dad. So unless something changes, I'd like to stay. Emma thought about this, her little face serious. What would make you leave? Emma, that's enough, Caleb said. No, she deserves an honest answer. Iris looked Emma in the eye. I would leave if I thought staying was going to hurt you or your dad, but I don't think that's going to happen. Do you promise? I promise to try my hardest to stay. Is that good enough? Emma nodded slowly. Okay, that's good enough. She went back to her cereal like nothing had happened, but Caleb saw the way Iris's hands shook when she stood up, saw the way she had to take a moment to compose herself before sitting back down. Later, after Emma was at school and they were alone in the cabin, Iris brought it up again.
I meant what I told her, she said. I want to stay. I know. But I'm scared I'm going to screw this up, that I'm going to do something or say something and you're going to realize you made a mistake bringing me here. Caleb took her hand across the table. I didn't make a mistake. You don't know that. Yeah, I do, because every day you're here, you prove it. You go to work, you come home, you help with Emma, you're building a life. That's not a mistake. That's exactly what's supposed to happen. It feels too good, like it can't be real. It's real. How do you know? Because I feel it too. Iris squeezed his hand. What if my ex finds me? What if he shows up here and ruins everything? It was the first time she'd mentioned him in weeks, and the fear in her voice was palpable. Caleb had wondered about this himself, had played out different scenarios in his head, but he'd never brought it up because he didn't want to make her more afraid than she already was. Has he tried to contact you? Caleb asked. No, but that doesn't mean he won't. If he shows up, we'll deal with it, together. You keep saying that word, together, because that's what we are now. Iris looked at him for a long moment. I've never had that before. Someone who wanted to face things with me instead of making me face them alone. Well, you have it now. She started crying again, happy tears this time, and Caleb pulled her onto his lap and held her while she let it all out. All the fear and relief and disbelief that good things were finally happening to her. The months that followed were better than Caleb could have imagined. Iris moved out of the guest room and into his, though they took it slow, letting the physical relationship develop at its own pace. Emma adjusted surprisingly well, just happy that Iris was staying. Sarah was cautiously supportive, though she made sure to remind Caleb regularly that if anything went wrong, she'd have his head. Thomas recovered enough to start coming back to the bakery a few days a week, but he let Iris continue running things. It's yours now, he told her one day. You've earned it. I can't just take your bakery. You're not taking it. I'm giving it to you. There's a difference. Thomas, I'm 73 years old and I just had a heart attack. I don't need to be working 16-hour days anymore. But I also don't want to sell to some corporation that's going to turn it into a chain, so I'm giving it to you on one condition. What's that? You keep the name Brennan's Bakery. It's been in my family for 3 generations. I'd like it to stay that way, even if it's not blood family anymore. Iris's eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to say. Say yes and get back to work. That sourdough starter isn't going to feed itself. She said yes. Of course she said yes. And when she came home that night and told Caleb, he could see the disbelief and joy warring in her expression. I own a bakery, she said, like she couldn't quite believe it. You own a bakery. How did this happen? 3 months ago I was ready to die, and now I own a bakery. Life's weird like that sometimes. She laughed and kissed him, and Caleb thought about Thomas's words from months ago. Save each other. Maybe that's exactly what they'd done. Emma's birthday came in October, and they had a party at the cabin. Just a small thing. Emma, a few friends from school, Sarah and her new boyfriend, Thomas from the bakery. Iris made a 3-layer chocolate cake that was probably too fancy for a 7-year-old's party, but Emma loved it. Make a wish, Caleb said as they gathered around the cake, candles flickering. Emma closed her eyes tight, thought for a moment, then blew out all 7 candles in one breath. Everyone cheered, and when they were cutting the cake later, Caleb asked her what she'd wished for. I can't tell you, Emma said seriously. Then it won't come true. Fair enough.
But later, when the party was winding down and Emma was showing her friends her new toys, Sarah pulled Caleb aside.
She seems happy, Sarah said, watching Emma laugh with her friends. Yeah, she is. You seem happy too. I am, Sarah smiled. Good. You deserve it, both of you. It was the closest thing to a blessing Caleb was going to get from his ex-wife, and it meant more than he could say. That night, after everyone had gone home and Emma was asleep, Caleb found Iris on the porch. She was sitting on the steps, looking out at the dark trees, and he sat down beside her. Good party, she said. Yeah, Emma loved the cake. I might have gone overboard with the decoration. Nah, it was perfect. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Iris spoke. I think Emma wished for me to stay, at her birthday. What makes you say that? Just a feeling. The way she's been asking questions lately, making sure I'm not going anywhere. And are you going anywhere? Iris turned to look at him. No, I'm exactly where I want to be. Caleb reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. I made you something. Caleb, it's not what you think. Just open it. Iris opened the box carefully. Inside was a small pendant on a silver chain, a tiny shirt crafted from metal and polished smooth. She lifted it out, and in the porch light, Caleb could see her eyes get shiny. It's the shirt, she said, the one I was wearing when I woke up here that first morning. Yeah, I wanted you to have something to remember where you came from and how far you've traveled. Caleb, I can't. Yes, you can. You can accept a gift from someone who loves you without it meaning you owe them something. We've been through this. She laughed through her tears. You love me. Yeah, I do. Have for a while now. I love you too. She said it like she was testing the words, seeing how they felt, then stronger. I love you. Caleb took the necklace and fastened it around her neck. The little shirt hung just below her collarbone, catching the light. Thank you, Iris said, for everything. For finding me, for not giving up on me, for showing me that good things can happen. You did the hard part. I just gave you a place to land. You gave me more than that. You gave me a family. And that was the truth of it, Caleb realized. Somewhere along the way, they'd become a family. Not a traditional one, not a perfect one, but a real one. Him and Iris and Emma building something new from the broken pieces they'd all been carrying. Winter came, and with it the first anniversary of the night Caleb had found Iris on the pier. They didn't talk about it, didn't need to, but they both knew what day it was. Iris made sourdough that morning before dawn, and when Caleb woke up, the whole cabin smelled like fresh bread. She was already at the bakery by the time he got up, so he took Emma to school and then drove into town. The bakery was busy. It was always busy now, but Iris saw him through the window and smiled. Be right back, she told her assistant, wiping flour from her hands. She came outside, and Caleb handed her a coffee from the shop next door. Thought you might need this. You thought right. She took a sip and sighed. Busy morning. You remember what day it is? Yeah, hard to forget. You okay? More than okay. She looked at him over the rim of her coffee cup. A year ago, I was standing on a pier trying to figure out how to die. Today, I'm standing outside my own bakery, drinking coffee with the man I love, planning what to make for dinner for his daughter, who I adore. It's not even close to the same life. You built this, all of it. We built it. Together. That word again. Together. It had become their foundation, their promise to each other. Whatever came, they'd face it together. I should get back, Iris said, handing him the empty cup. Thomas is coming in at noon, and if I haven't finished the afternoon bread by then, he'll never let me hear the end of it. Go. I'll see you tonight. She kissed him quickly and headed back inside, and Caleb watched her through the window. Watched her tie her apron, wash her hands, dive back into the rhythm of baking. She moved with confidence now, with purpose. Nothing like the terrified woman he'd found that night. People could change. They could heal. They could build new lives from the ashes of old ones. Caleb had always believed that. But Iris had proven it. That night, they had dinner as a family. Emma talked nonstop about her day, about the science project she was starting, about how her friend Jackson had finally learned to do a cartwheel. Iris listened and asked questions and helped Emma with her homework while Caleb did the dishes. It was ordinary,
domestic, nothing special. It was everything. Later, after Emma was in bed, Caleb and Iris sat on the couch. She had her head on his shoulder, her hand playing with the small shirt pendant that she never took off.
I've been thinking, Iris said.
About what? About making this official. Caleb's heart skipped.
What do you mean? I mean, I've been living here for almost a year. I think it's time I actually moved in. Like, really moved in. My name on the lease, my stuff out of boxes, all of it. Your stuff hasn't been in boxes for months.
You know what I mean? Caleb turned to look at her. Are you sure?
I've never been more sure of anything.
She sat up slightly. This is my home now. You and Emma, this cabin, even that terrible couch you refused to replace, this is where I belong. Okay then, let's make it official. Just like that? Just like that. Iris kissed him, soft and certain, and Caleb felt something click into place. This was it. This was the life he was meant to have. Not the perfect life, not the easy life, but the real one. The one built on second chances and quiet courage, and the decision to keep showing up even when it was hard.
I have one condition, Iris said when they pulled apart.
What's that? We get a new couch. This one's destroying my back. Caleb laughed. Deal. They sat there for a while longer, not talking, just being together. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows the way it always did in winter. Inside, the cabin was warm and safe and full of the kind of peace that only came from knowing you were exactly where you were supposed to be. Somewhere in her room, Emma was probably dreaming about Cartwheel and science projects and the family she'd built from the broken pieces. Somewhere in town, Thomas was probably sitting in his living room, grateful that his bakery would live on in good hands. And here, on this couch that definitely needed replacing, Caleb and Iris were building their future one quiet moment at a time. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. There would still be hard days, still be moments when the past came knocking, still be times when they'd have to choose to stay instead of run. But they'd face it together. And that was enough, more than enough. It was everything.